perfectly good barn of stalls, and they decide to stand underneath a tree in the rain and the storm and look like they're moping. Knuckleheads. Oh well. I guess they want to hang out in the rain, they want to hang out in the rain. My travel plans got put off. Might be leaving tonight, I'm not sure, but it's pouring rain. I'm gonna get some voices heard for something to do now that I'm caught up. And the horses don't want to hang out in here during a rainy day. But anyways, this is titled "It Was Hunting Me." I think this is a recent email in, actually. Now I'm gonna get some older ones right after. It's just in my face here right now. It's titled "It Was Hunting Me." Most of you can use my name. My name is Ken Cantor Sr. I'm a U.S. Army vet, a farmer, hunter, trapper, and fisherman. I've had many run-ins with these people, but the one that almost kept me out of the woods, stands out the most. Happened in 1987. I was 13. I was small game hunting. It was small game hunting season, and I just got home from school. Grabbed my .22 long rifle, semi-auto, and headed to my favorite stand of old growth oaks. I never left the woods until it got dark to see. I never left the woods until it got too dark to see, sorry. On this day, as like many others, I headed out to bag some rabbits and any other small game. It was a great day. I had a mixed bag and limited it out, so I headed home. Then I noticed how all the birds and other animals just left. I mean, no noise at all. Then I see something moving at 20 yards. No sound, no nothing. I picked up and headed out. It moved from tree to tree. I stopped not far from an old bridge and took a stand. I was so scared, I couldn't have ran if I wanted to. So I emptied my .22 as fast as I could, reloaded, crossed the bridge and unloaded again. When I got home, my dad asked me what happened. I told him and he made fun of me. I got mad. Put my .22 up and I grabbed my 7.62, my Coon Light, and went after this thing. No way, you little badass. I was not going to let this prick run me out. I never seen it again. Thanks, Steve Ken Cantor Sr., Southeast Ohio. P.S. I still hunt as much as I can. These hairy assholes aren't keeping me from the woods. Okay, man, good for you. Doesn't sound like doesn't sound like they'd want to be running into you in the woods if you were on your grumpy day. 13. Thank God you reacted that way, right? Some people have fight or flight. You definitely got the fight in you, man. Send any more information if you got it, alright, man? If you come across anything that's handy for help people, you send it in. So it's titled The Grass Man. The Grass Man and the Garbage Man. Steve, you can use my name, Ernie Engel, Arizona. Steve, I want to thank you and your viewers for the opening of my eyes to the forest people. I was born in Ohio and grew up in a hunting, camping, and fishing family. I don't have any experiences with the forest people until moving to the Southwest. Growing up, I heard many of the stories of the Ohio Grass Man of Eastern Ohio and the 70s Garbage Man who roamed Central Ohio. In 1997, I moved to New Mexico and continued my outdoor activities to include backpacking and day hiking. While living in Albuquerque, I made several day hikes to Manzano Mountains, part of the Cibola National Forest. On this day, I was hiking the Bosque Trail at 8,063 feet, with a climb to the Crest Trail at 9,400 feet. On top, I visited the Reformwalt Homestead Ruins. At the ruins, the weather turned abruptly from a sunny, quiet, pleasant, to high winds and what appeared to be a storm front moving in. To the weather, I started down the same trail that I hiked up back to my car. As I hiked down the trail, I started to become confused and disoriented. I was now recognizing the trail I just hiked up. I felt a complete feeling of fear, then terror. I had to get out of the area. I started to run off the trail into a heavy wooded area, sloping almost vertical. I knew I had to get to my car. After several minutes, I regained my bearings and quickly returned to the trail and to my car. I never went back to the area. Shortly after the incident, I moved to Phoenix, Arizona, fall of '97. I continued to backpack and hike. I was doing a solo backpacking trip into the Superstition Mountains east of Phoenix. I had completed the trip and was hiking out the Peters Canyon Trail, approximately 3 miles to the trailhead, elevation 3,400 to 3,800 feet. As I entered the canyon, I had this growing feeling of being watched, and as I continued through the canyon, as this feeling grew, I saw no one. The feeling grew to, I need to get out of the canyon ASAP. As I neared the trailhead and my truck, the feeling and need to leave the area diminished. A friend and I were practicing overnight camping for a group hike into the Grand Canyon. My friend had no backpacking experience, and I was trying to help prepare him for the group hike. This was May 1982. We traveled to Sedona, Arizona, to a campsite I had camped at many times solo. The site was in the secret mountain wilderness up the Loy Canyon Trail to trail number 109 at the elevation of 6,572 feet. We arrived late afternoon, set up camp, and gathered firewood. With the fire going, we started dinner, and it was starting to get dark. We piled on the wood. It was a moonless night, and with no visibility into the surrounding forest beyond the light of the fire. This is an important note to keep in mind. We were sitting across from each other, shooting the breeze, beer in hands. It was around 9:30 p.m. Another key note is I was armed with a sidearm. The night was pitch black. Behind me I heard what I can only describe as a freight train heading straight at us, limbs breaking, and the noise of 2 stomping feet, not 4. As I got closer, the earth felt as if it was moving with each stomp. How many times have we heard that one? That is about as intimidating as it can get for anything, for anyone, anywhere in the woods. I stood up and moved to the far side of the fire where my friend stood. Whatever this was, I wanted the fire between us. I drew my sidearm, waiting for it to break into the light of the fire, and just at that moment, it would appear nothing. All noise stopped, no retreat. No retreat of whatever it was, silence. No other occurrences the rest of the night. In the morning, I searched the area where this thing came through. No broken branches, no disturbed foliage, and no footprints. August 2020, I drove from Phoenix, Arizona to Jackson, Ohio, located in southeast Ohio, part of the Wayne National Forest. I was there to help my cousin work on his one-room house and would be there for a month. He lived off 5 Miles Road, approximately 10 miles from the town of Jackson, Ohio, on a lot he purchased of 2 acres. This was in Amish country and heavily wooded. At 250 feet in elevation, I pulled my off-road trailer, which was 6 feet in height, with a 2-man tent mounted on top. Being August in Ohio was the 90s during the day and high 70s at night. I was camping about 30 feet from the front door of the house. Due to the temperature at night, my cousin slept with the front door open and his bed close to the door. I think I read this. I'd been there several weeks, and one night I was awoke instantly, sitting up, grabbed my watch, and saw it was 1 a.m. Off in the distance, I could hear the farmer's dogs raising hell. Other than that, it was dead silence and no night sounds. What I heard next again, I was 6 to 7 feet off the ground in the tent with all flaps open, was a guttural, deep growl lasting 10 to 15 seconds, followed by another growl lasting the same. Steve, this growl was right next to my camper. I grabbed the flashlight and saw nothing around the camper. I remember my cousin sleeps with the front door open. When I asked him the next day if he had heard anything, he said no. Steve, this happened again the next night. Awakened instantly from a deep sleep, dogs raising hell, 1 a.m. and 2 guttural growls in silence. The rest of the time I spent there, nothing occurred. Steve, I feel that once contact is made with the forest people, that contact remains no matter where you travel, and as you pointed out, you know when they're around. I want to thank you and David Plattis for opening my eyes and realizing what these counters are, the forest people. Keep up the great work. The truth will set us free. Ernie Engel, Arizona. Ernie, thanks for that email, man. You heard the growl. I haven't heard a growl yet myself. I don't want to, especially with this how they're described. Imagine that, pitch black, something growls at you and shakes your frickin' ribcage. F that. Just leave me alone. Thanks for sending that again, man. Alright, this is titled Tracks. Hello Steve, my name is Wally. I live in rural Idaho. First off, I want to thank you for all you do with sharing these emails. I've had a couple experiences in my life that I wanted to share. When I was in my early teens, I was riding my dirt bike on a 2-track road through the woods close to my family's farm. This is a private dirt road through our neighbor's property. I would maybe have 5 or 6 vehicles a year drive on it. I was happily riding along when I suddenly heard an ear-splitting roar/scream come from the brush maybe 20 feet to the side of the road. It scared the crap out of me. And I immediately gunned my bike and rode home on a different trail as fast as I could. When I arrived home, shaking and crying, my dad listened to my story and said it was probably a mountain lion that had a deer kill beside the road. He grabbed his rifle and we loaded into his pickup truck and drove back out to the spot. I was about to go out looking for whatever had made that sound and stayed in the truck while my father searched. He never found anything. He said that he thought it was just a lion. For weeks, I was terrified just by the memory of the sound. For people wonder about how much it takes to scare a young teen, let me say I was blessed to grow up in a very rural area. By that age, I was regularly going deer hunting by myself. Me and my siblings would spend the day in the woods at a small stream about 2 miles from our house. I wasn't afraid of much in the Idaho woods, but that scream scared the crap out of me. The second encounter was just a sighting of tracks, not a physical encounter. This happened only last winter in a different area of Idaho. I was looking for mule deer, trying to find a herd of bucks as it was almost time for them to start shedding antlers. I suddenly spotted some tracks in the snow about a mile away and immediately knew what they were. The tracks came out of a cave, and then headed over an 11,000 foot barren ridge. I began hiking towards the tracks with the intent of taking pictures, but when I got around 100 yards from the cave, I was suddenly hit with a terrible feeling, and I knew better to get my ass out of there. Before I left, I studied them with binoculars as best I could. The tracks are about as big as what a man on snowshoes would make, but the distance between the tracks is 5 to 6 feet. Also, the snow was over my knees, probably 2 feet deep. Whatever had made these tracks was tall enough to completely lift its feet off the snow with each step. There was no disturbed snow between the tracks, and any of you know that have walked in the snow know how little it takes before your feet start making troughs in the snow with each step, and it becomes impossible to lift them out cleanly. I know what made the tracks and screamed at me as a kid, and I don't care what anyone else says. They weren't there to see and hear with me. Keep on keeping on, brother. I don't care if you share my name. Sincerely, Wally from Idaho. Here, Wally. I'd be curious, Wally, if you wanted to, if you ever felt compelled to, would be to go back there sometime. Go back there, take somebody, bring some cannons with you, whatever, but go back there and maybe videotape that cave for us. Even from a distance, get a camera with a good zoom so you feel very secure, but I'm not familiar with caves myself. I haven't gone looking for caves around BC. I know there's a bunch here, but I'm just not familiar with them. I don't think I really want to go near a cave, actually, but I would be really curious to see what you saw when it comes to that cave entrance. Or not. But if you feel like if you're on there again, please do, all right? Videotape it, take photos, whatever, and share it with us. Okay, here comes another one. Story for you, Steve. It says, did you see this, Steve? I think it's sent twice or something, I don't know. Hello, Steve, my name is Chris, and I live in the west central portion of Illinois. I've been a subscriber to your channel on YouTube now for probably 8 months, and I love what you're doing, and thank you for it as well. People need to know what's out there in the woods. I, for many years, have been curious about Sasquatch and such encounters, until one day I had one myself. Where I'm located, there is a river called the Spoon River that runs through our area. It goes between towns and fields and in and out of woodlands. There was a locally famous bridge around here called Wolf Covered Bridge, and on the day of my encounter, I happened to be sitting right underneath it. I decided to take a day and see if I could go catch a few channel cat for dinner, and I went down with my pole, and of course I always go armed, but here in Illinois we have to get a FOID card to be able to carry a firearm for any reason. Silly, isn't it? So, all I had on my person was a GI Tanto from Cold Steel. Decent full tang blade, very durable. Anyways, not trying to make this sound like an ad for cold steel products, LOL. I was just sitting there, pole in a carved wood Y-pole stand I made, and was fiddling around my blade, waiting for a bite on the line. Well, that's when something hit the water, about midway across the river. The river's only about 50 to 60 feet wide, and of course it caught my attention, but I had nothing about it. I just sat there thinking, what just hit the water? Being that I was under a bridge, I thought some creature fell off, or a snake fell that was trying to get the bird eggs underneath the bridge, but nothing surfaces. So I ignored it over time. I moved down to the sun. I moved down when the sun moved, and I was a little bit out from under the bridge after a time and still in its shadow. Then, as I was standing there getting ready to recast my line and sit back down along the bank, I heard the deepest growl I've ever heard in my life. Now I know what animals are in this area. We don't have bear, and we seldom have a cougar make itself known to the public, but this is nothing like either of those two could produce. I felt this growl deep inside me. The vibrations of it shook my ribs. I instantly understood what it was and what it wanted me to do. So I put my blade back in its sheath and I packed my gear and I said loudly, I know you're out there, big man. I don't want an encounter to get physical, so you can have this space and I'll leave. So I did this, but I never got the chance to see his face. I wish I could have, though. Maybe, maybe not. I heard where the growl came from, and it was across the river from me. I personally think if I had stuck around, I wouldn't be here right now to send you this message. I think I might have died along that river. I've never had a flight reflex, being that I'm 6'5" and 340 pounds of a man. Probably why he growled to intimidate me. I tower over most people. This took place probably 6 years ago. May share this and my name later. Okay, man, thanks. The growl again. I know a guy told me about being growled at, and we weren't even talking about this topic. He was hunting just past Clearwater, British Columbia, and he said he just parked his truck. He's going for the evening hunt. He's walking through a logged off area. And he said he was just about to get to the timber where he's going to sit inside the timber and watch the logging clear cut for the night. And he said that something growled at him so fiercely it scared the shit out of him, and he literally took off and ran back to his truck and got the hell out of there. Wonder what that was, right? And this is a very experienced hunter, BC. I'm not looking forward to hearing any growls myself, especially where I'm going after this. I'll be taking everybody with me to show. Encounters when I was a teen, please don't use my name. You got it. That's been watching for a while now. These took place in the early to mid 80s. First, a little background. My mom and dad had been divorced for a few years. My sisters and I lived with our mother in rural southern Iowa. The nearest neighbor was almost a mile away. Dad's place is a few miles down the road from my mom's house and about the same distance from his neighbors. Every other weekend we would spend with our father. They got along with each other a lot more than many do after a divorce. My first experience was when I was around 11 or 12 years old at my mom's house. My mom was working nights and my sisters were staying at a friend's house for the weekend. I was outside just messing around the yard, and I was grounded to the yard for getting home too late earlier that week. Dad would sometimes stop by to make sure I hadn't left to go see my friends, so I stayed home like I was supposed to keep from getting grounded longer. It was almost dark when I heard this scream/roar. It was so loud I felt it. I've heard crows, beller, and bobcat scream before, but this wasn't one of them. I ran to the house, locked the door, and closed the curtains. I was so scared that I didn't turn on the lights or anything. At the time I was thinking that whatever it was, if it came to the house, it would think the place was empty. I heard a few noises later, but nothing I could swear to as being made by the creature that made that sound. I stayed in the house, going up and down the hallway to make sure it wasn't trying to get in. That would have sucked. I was still up when Mom got home, and at 3 in the morning, I told her what happened, and she more or less said that my imagination was blown out of proportion. It's probably just a cow. second experience at my dad's house. I was at my dad's house for the weekend and wanted to go squirrel hunting that day. I was 16 at the time this took place. My dad and sisters were going to be gone for a few hours and I didn't feel like going along. There's a wooded draw with a creek in that has water through the summer. It is mostly open timber with some patches of multiflora, multi-rose, some 8-10 feet deep. Something rose, some 8-10 feet wide and about 6 feet tall bushes through it. Multiflora? Sorry. The draw is about 150 yards wide and the cornfield on one side with a pasture on the other. I was sitting on the pasture side looking down into the draw. I'd been there about 10 to 15 minutes waiting for the draw to return to normal after I'd come in. I started looking at the forks in the trees to try to see if a squirrel was laying in one, hiding and watching me. I had a 22 lever action with a 3x9 scope on it. I know, overscoped, but I only did headshots. I'd been sitting just a bit and started feeling uneasy. About that time I saw a movement by one of the rose bushes, put the scope on it to see if a squirrel was scavenging on the ground. Through the scope, I saw a patch of brownish looking hair with two blackish brown eyes looking back at me through the bush. His face kind of twitched, like it realized I'd been seen. It had been seen. Looking at me, it slowly stood up, and I realized how big and solid it was. After standing, it never quit looking at me and started walking off. It didn't appear to be hurrying, but covered the 50 feet to get around the bend faster than I could have run it. I got up and got out of there looking around the whole time. I never even thought about shooting it. It looked way too human-like. And with a 22, I would have done about as much damage throwing rocks at it. When I got back to the dad's house, I sat and watched the field I crossed coming back from the draw. When Dad got home, he asked, "I thought you were going out hunting." Remember how Mom dismissed my story? I answered that the neighbor whose land I was hunting had turned his cows onto the pasture and draw I was going to hunt, so I came home. This is the first time telling anyone about it. Thanks for a place to voice what happened to me without worrying about criticism or telling the truth. Alright. Thanks for sending that in. What do I say? What do you say to that? It's just a sad state of affairs when you can't be honest with the people who you're supposed to be safe with. You know what I mean? That sucks. Sucks. But at least you got us now, right? It's a safe place here, and you're among thousands of people who have seen the same thing. It's too bad. So many people out there are scared of ridicule, right? I don't know. It's kind of like the first video I shared online when it came to this topic. It's like you just look everybody in the eye, tell them what you saw, tell them you didn't wish for it, you didn't ask for it, and if they can't accept it, to ram it up their ass. It's about... That seems to work good for me, actually. That stance on it in the past when people have guys that I know, you know, people that I know through hunting or whatever, wherever I am, I've had people look at me with that comical look on their face questioning me about it, and I square up with them and I get dead serious and I tell them flat out, yeah, I saw it. No, I'm not going to lie about it. I can't because I saw it. Didn't ask for it, seen it, and if you can't handle that, jam it. And I haven't had anybody want to challenge me any further on that yet. When you take that stance, right? Screw them. Screw them if they can't wrap their head around it. Well, too bad. If they can't wrap their head around it, why do they have to try to silence people about it? I've come across that too many times too, where absolute assholes will not only do they not want to discuss it, they don't want to wrap their heads around it, they don't want you talking about it. It's kind of weird, isn't it? We ran across a few individuals like that in the past, but I never shut up, and I won. All right, here we go. What do we got? I love watching your show for about a year now, and I've been very interested in all the different emails regarding Sasquatch. Years ago in the mid-90s, I grew up on a rural mountain road that was almost inaccessible during winter months. It was far enough up that we would rarely have any traffic. We had a few different 4x4s, but never got a Toyota. So needless to say, we did our fair share of walking/hiking back into our cabin about 1.5 miles from where we park our car. My mom drove school bus for the nearby town. I would have to be to work pretty early. I was about 12 at the time. So rather than having to walk 3 miles to the bus stop, which I usually had to walk home from, I chose to walk out the 1.5 miles with her to the car and ride her bus route with her before school. One morning we were walking out by flashlight, like we often did that time of year. It must have been January or February. We came upon 2 sets of what looked to be huge bare footprints. One is about the size of my snow boot, and the one of the feet looked to be deformed, and the other one was like Shaq or even something bigger. The stride was further than I could jump. This was well before smartphones, so of course we didn't get any pictures, but both my mom and I were scared shitless. That was the only time I held the flashlight while she wielded her loaded .38. Good for her. We told our story to an avid Bigfoot hunter named Wes Summerlin, who happened to have a son who had a cabin near ours. He had been known for horseback riding and tracking Bigfoot in the Idaho forest for years, and was, in other words, the man. He said he recognized the messed up foot. It had been a juvenile that got his foot caught in a bear trap a year or 2 prior. I wonder how he found that out. You know what I mean? I wonder how he found that out, because A, he would either have to have seen it pulling its foot from the bear trap, or B, the Sasquatch would have had to have told you, I got my foot stuck in a bear trap years ago. Right? I'm not being insulting, I'm just using common sense of what we're in reply with what we've been told, right? Here comes the chickens. A couple years ago, that joke of a TV show came to town. When I tried to tell them where to look, they shut me down and must have already had a spot where they would not find anything. I began to think, yeah, Bigfoot will find your asses. Anyways. About a year ago, I just began purchasing property in the same canyon I grew up in, except about 1.5 miles or 2 miles further in and up. Last Halloween was a full moon, and a buddy and I had a small fire in a burn barrel. We began to have a few cold ones and bullshit about life. After about 20 minutes, we heard what sounded like a large ape or something whooping. Whatever it was sounded like a big male compared to the other 2 we heard. I know it wasn't an elk, but it didn't sound like a cougar. We both had chills. And my dog, who was previously out running around exploring, was between my friend and I with her tail tucked, almost shaking. After about an hour, what seemed to be a scout reporting back to the others further up the ridge, the sound seemed to go away. Several months later in the summer, I was staying the night in my cabin, and my daughter and her friend were wanting to camp out in a tree house about 100 yards away. They both got spooked after about 45 minutes and came back to the cabin, and they said they saw a skinwalker or something. We'd been talking about this wild stuff a lot earlier in the day, so I figured it was just their imagination, lack of sleep, and too much junk food. I was taking some random pictures of the place the next morning, and upon looking back at the pictures a day or 2 later, I noticed what seemed to be a green orb in one of the photos. I also thought maybe I saw a face of a Bigfoot in the brush to the left, but I've lost sight of the photo except this one. But I've lost most of the photos except this one. So you might disregard the red arrow that I drew. The green orb is very clear to see, and it looks to be too perfect to be just a random sun glare or light ray, and is exactly where the treehouse is located. Just a few months ago, a friend and I were unloading gravel in my driveway, and we stayed a bit late enjoying the quiet. Again, we heard the same sort of whooping on the same side we heard it before. Again, the hair on our arms stood up, and once again my dog was at our side, its tail tucked. About 10 minutes later, maybe 30 yards away, almost in slow motion, we heard a couple of decent-sized trees being pushed over. It sounded just like when you push a tree over with a machine, but there was no other sounds. It was so close that I was anticipating something coming out of the woods towards us. Then a few minutes later, we heard a large thump, like a giant jumping down and landing. We waited around for about 20 minutes, but didn't hear anything else. After my After my first friend and I had our experience, he recommended your channel, and I've been listening ever since. All right, gotcha. Got the picture. I will include that in the video. I gotta save it to my phone right here before I go in to make sure I do. I have forgotten to put in a lot of photographs in the past videos, unfortunately. I apologize to anybody whose photos I left out. It wasn't intentional. But like I said a few days ago, once I get some time, once I get back from this next trip, I'm going to, I have to empty out the photos from my phone because there is so many in my phone saved that have been sent from people and in my computer. I need to, I'll just link them all up, put them in a video, share them with everybody. And then, just to make sure I do. And then I'll put them all in a file and put them on an external drive with all the other content and save them for, I don't know, for whatever. But anyway, my brains get a little scattered. I gotta get some other camera gear. I gotta get my rifle, buy my license. I'm gonna bring my 300 short mag with me. Bears are out now. And I gotta get my SD card reader. I gotta get my snowshoes in case I need them. I just gotta get all my gear together and get packed and get going. I was supposed to be there this morning, but I just didn't make it. And but I will be hiking in those coastal mountains tomorrow. Bring some cameras, make sure I got the SD cards cleared. Onward and onward. Soggy horses. Anyway, keep sending all that information in, alright you guys? Especially you people out there who are scared to share, have nobody to share to, you're scared of ridicule. This is a safe place to do it, alright? It's a safe place to do it here. Share my story at howtohunt.com, and I'll be back soon.